Welcome to ghosthatarts, and thank you for visiting my channel. This video will showcase my method for achieving lifelike skin tones using oil paints on this particular model. Without further ado, let's get started. First of all, this is what paint I'm going to use. The three main colors are just yellow ochre, cadmium red and French ultramarine. Then, I'm using titanium white and ivory black to change the value of the color. But more on that later. You can use pretty much any red, blue and yellow for this. Remember to grab some mineral spirit to thin the paint and clean your brushes. And whatever you do, avoid using your Kolinsky brushes. Stick to a synthetic or old brush, as the mineral spirit can ruin them quickly. Don't forget to have some paper towels on hand, and then you're ready to get creative. I began by priming this model in white. After that, I used the airbrush to paint it with Vallejo's flat flesh color. Then, I start by using a tiny bit of white spirit to dilute the paint and start to match the color on the model. I'm satisfied with the color as it is, but I want to enhance it by adding some white to increase its value. Take a look at this picture to understand how it changes the hue, saturation, and value. That's a really good match. On to the next step. Now that I've got a good base color, it's time to create some highlights and shadows. Let's begin with the highlights. I'll mix in a bit of white and yellow with the base color. Remember, we want it to be slightly brighter than you might initially think, as this will be a thin layer on top of the base color. The same principle applies to the shadow color. I'm blending blue and red together in the base color to achieve a grayish purple hue. If it turns out too red or blue, simply add a bit more yellow to balance it out. You'll need two brushes to begin with, a small one and a slightly bigger one. The larger brush is meant for blending and removing color, so make sure it never comes into contact with the white spirit. Keep it dry at all times. Begin with the shadows and the tightest spots. It's a unique approach compared to regular painting. When using oil paints, you're essentially subtracting color to create a tint instead of building up layers. I begin applying the shadow color in a sloppy manner and then blend it out. Don't forget to regularly wipe off the brush on a paper towel. We just want it to be a tint. Oil paints takes a long time to dry. That can be used as advantage. Oil paint is great because you can make mistakes without any worries. If you mess up, simply grab some white spirit and a Q-tip and wipe it away. And if there's something on the model that you're not happy with, just wipe it off and start over. Well, ain't that easy? Make sure to include shadows around the entire face along the hairline and blend them out using a bigger brush. I'm using the shadows here to create a face contouring effect, similar to the one in the picture. Make sure to include shadows around the eyes and nose as well. Let's bring some life to the skin by adding a touch of color. I'm blending the base color with a small hint of red. As cadmium red is super vibrant, start with a small amount and add a bit more if needed. I want to achieve a pinkish red hue for the cheeks, around the eyes and nose. This is when the model starts to come alive. Time to bring out the highlights. I'm reaching for that special highlight hue I prepared earlier, blending the base color with yellow and white. Taking another look at the contour image to pinpoint the perfect spots for the highlights. I also fantasizing where the natural light will hit on the model to make some more highlight there. Soften the color on the model by gently brushing until you're pleased with the result. I thought the shadows needed a touch of extra brown because I wasn't completely pleased with the hue. I wanted it to be a tad darker, so I added more brown to achieve that. After these steps, I apply some matte varnish and seal the model. I know the oil paint is still wet, but I've found that using a spray varnish works really well. It's always a good idea to test it on a small piece first, as I can't guarantee that all varnishes will behave the same way. Once that's done, you can move on to painting the base color on the hair and eyes, to see if any changes are needed for the face color. Time to work on the lips. I'm going to mix a purple hue with a touch of red for a nice blend. Starting from the inner part of the lips, I'll blend the color outwards. Using a brush with a finer tip will help prevent any color smudging on the rest of the skin. To avoid having to redo anything, it's best to add the color slowly and with small steps instead of rushing to it. Let's take the skin to the next level by adding some speckles and imperfections. To begin, I'll use a Vallejo brown speed paint. Remember, it's always better to dilute the color more than you initially think. Next, I'll grab an old hard brush and flick the color onto the model, making sure to remove any large dots. It's crucial to avoid using overly saturated colors. I'm focusing on the side of the model and avoiding the front a bit. Keep flicking the color and eliminating the larger drops until you're pleased with small imperfections in the skin. After that, I'll include some more highlights to blend in imperfections and add extra red around the eyes. Prime it again, and that's all there is to it. Now it's just a matter of finishing the rest of the model's head at lightning speed. Hold on. Thanks a lot for tuning in. If you picked up something new from this video or simply enjoy what I do and want more, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Your support encourages me to keep creating tutorials. Catch you in part 2, where I'll wrap up the remaining part of the model. If you have any questions or anything else you'd like to share, feel free to leave a comment below. Take care!